In this video, I'm going to be talking about failure. So this is episode 002 of the lessons from failure. This video is about bouncing back from failure. So at some point in our lives, we're all going to make mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of people you've met, whether it's in real life or books you've read or wherever, they've made mistakes, right? And so it's not like making mistakes is something that's to be afraid of, right? Of course, you shouldn't be making mistakes if you can avoid them, but it's not something that you should be afraid of. Certainly, it's not something that can stop you from achieving the goals that you want to achieve in life, whether it's getting really good grades or it's getting that job that you really wanted. Now, why am I talking about this? It's because when people fail, people associate a certain feeling to failure, to the point that they let that feeling of failure cripple them. It's very important that if you fail at something, whether you wrote an exam and you got a D when you actually wanted to get an A, I wanted to say an E, whether you get 10% in an exam when you wanted to get 60%, or 80% when you wanted to get 60%, or whatever it is. Actually, that doesn't make sense. If you get 80% when you wanted 60, that's a pass. The other way around, if you get 60% when you want to get 80%, some people define that as a failure, right? And in reality, it is a failure, right? Because failing simply means things didn't go the way you wanted them to go, right? That's what failing is. However, a lot of people let that cripple them. Instead of learning from their mistakes, they tend to amplify that piece of failure. They amplify that. No matter how big or how small it is, they amplify it. They let that define them. They somehow let other people's opinions of that failure dictate how they ought to be behaving on that failure, right? And that's the important bit. If you let other people's opinions enter into your feelings of failure, you will always feel like one, because other people will feel for you, right? What do I mean by that? You know, when someone falls and we're all like, right? It's not, you didn't fall, right? It was the other person that fell, even though, because in your head you're sympathizing with them, empathy, you're trying to feel for them, and for a second it actually feels like you're the one who fell, but that's not true, right? You have no idea, although maybe you have a little bit, but you have no idea how that person feels. Maybe they've been falling for 100 times, and that time they fell, it wasn't as painful as you thought it was. So it's very important that as an individual, you understand that when you fail, when you go through something, other people are out there looking at you and they have certain feelings. But whatever they're thinking might not be exactly how you are feeling. And whatever opinion they have over your falling or your failure, it doesn't mean that that particular opinion that they have applies to you. Now, why am I saying that? It's because when you fail, you must have the courage to stand up, even when everyone thinks you should stay down, right? Going back to that analogy of failing, a lot of people will tell you to stay down. A lot of people will tell you to try other things. A lot of people will feel for you so much they want you to stop trying. And that's where a lot of people then actually fail. Because I believe you can learn a lot from your failures. That U or that E grade you got, you might not pass that exam, but you have learned something from it. Maybe the lesson you learned from there is next time do your homework on time. Maybe the lesson you learned from there is go and ask your teacher for revision. Maybe the lesson you learned from there is don't sleep late at night when you have an exam the next day. Maybe the lesson you learned from there is revise early. Maybe the lesson you learned from there is spend time with people that improve your grades in the long run. So there's never actually failure if you can learn a lesson from it. Failure doesn't exist. It only exists when people give up. When you allow that event or that experience of failing to dictate for you negatively the next move you're going to make. When you quit or when you give up because of a failure, that's when it becomes a failure. But if you can learn something from it and move on and improve your life based on that, And that's difficult because you have to remove yourself from the negative feeling and try to find the positive in whatever has happened in there. That's how people get up when they fall. That's how people get up when they fail. If you always make it a mission that you learn something from your failure, no matter how bad it is, try to learn something. Now, am I saying you should do it again? No. If you decide that you don't want to do it again, by all means don't. But don't let that decision be determined by other people's views. Let it be determined by your own research, by your own convictions. Have you actually looked at the situation and thought, okay, I cannot do this, let me move on? But even when you do move on, are you going to learn something from it so that the next step you take is well informed, is better? You've learned from your previous experiences. Thank you. Everybody, I'm going to be releasing a Lessons from Failure episode every single weekday. So like the page, share, comment, so that you can stay in touch with every video that I upload so that you don't miss a thing. Thank you.